My name is Keishi Akpara. I am the Vice President of the Student Nutrition Group. Our group serves to promote nutrition research, education, and activities on the University of South Carolina campus. We welcome both graduate and undergraduate students to join our group from various majors. We host activities that include monthly events where nutrition research or training topics are presented, as well as service activities once per semester. So we are excited to end this symposium series today, as it is just as important to highlight our students' work. So for today's agenda, we are first going to announce the poster winners, and then we're going to have everyone present. We just ask that you save all questions until all the presentations are finished so that we have better control of time. But of course, you can submit questions over chat throughout the presentation. And then we're going to do a few minutes for Q&A, and then we're going to finish off with a trivia section. So let's get this started.
Awesome, thank you. Well, I am excited to present the winners of our poster session. We had a lot of great submissions, and the final scores were close. So you guys all did a really excellent job. So our first place, which should I go in order, or maybe like a drum roll to the first place? I don't know. We'll go popular vote first. Our popular vote, if you guys know, we got the opportunity to vote on whose poster we thought was excellent. And we had lots of great responses. And our winner for our popular vote was Katherine Devivo. I hope I'm saying that right. And we'll get to hear from her a little bit later. In third place, Andrea Brown. She's not able to join us today, but she is going to, she submitted a recorded presentation, so we'll get to hear from her as well. Second place was Rubaiya Jesmin, and our first place winner was Hannah Parker. So congratulations to each of you. We're really excited to have you and to hear an extended version of your research project. So we're gonna get started with Hannah Parker. Hannah, take it away.
Okay, let's see if I can do this again. Okay, are we good? Do we see it?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, well, just to introduce myself, I'm Hannah Parker. I'm a first-year doctoral student in exercise science. I work with the ACOI group, and I just want to point out that I have my email on this slide, so if anyone has questions or comments that come up, please feel free to email me. I would love to chat and hear your ideas and comments. So our study was Food Insecure Households Report Decreased Access to Healthy Foods in the Home as the COVID-19 pandemic continues. So, gosh, it's not turning. Are you guys seeing it switch? Okay, one second. There. So our objective was to look at the presence of healthy food items that were in the home at two different time points at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, and then compare the presence of those healthy food items and the number between food insecure households and food secure households to see if that was different as the pandemic was continuing on. So just to take a step back, our study came from a larger cohort study called the Florence Project. The Florence Project is a study looking at school schedule and school calendar. So looking at year-round schooling versus traditional school calendars and the impact that has on healthy behaviors. So when the pandemic started, that interrupted all school calendars. So the study was interrupted and we started the Florence COVID Project. And that's where my data is coming from. So they took a subsample of the large Florence project and used that subsample for the Florence COVID project. So here you can see a timeline of how everything has happened so far. So in yellow, you can see more social aspects of the pandemic. So when the state of emergency was declared, stay-at-home orders, and then when dining options were more available and open, when state of emergency was extended. In red, you can see the impact for schooling specifically. So on March 16th, all of our public schools closed, and then May 21st, the last day of e-learning for schools, that marks for us the end of spring and the start of summer. So that's kind of our cut point. And in blue, you can see more specifically for our study when our enrollment began. And our first survey was measured on April 14th. And then our second time point was in July. And that was our second survey measurement. So about 3 months apart, we asked the same questions for our participants to compare the data. So what we did was we surveyed parents of elementary age children, and the kids were 2nd through 5th grade. And we deemed them food secure or food insecure based on a 2-item USDA screener, which are these 2 questions. And so if the parent answered sometimes true or often true for either of the questions, then we categorized them as food insecure. And then if it was never true for both of them, they were food secure. We then asked parents about multiple different food items, and we classified those as healthy or unhealthy being in the home from the Healthy Meal Index. So an example of this would be this question, and this would be if any of those were marked as being in the home, then that would be an unhealthy item. Whereas this would be an example that if any of these were marked, then that would count as a healthy item. So we took all of those and added it up and made an average for each parent response. So what we found, we did a 2x2 repeated measures ANOVA for our main analysis. And within that, we had 62 households, and 30% of those households were food insecure and 70% were food secure. And I just want to note here that the national average is a little over 13.5% for food insecurity. So this was a little oversampled for food insecure, but I think that that benefits in some ways so that it's a little bit more proportional than just 13.5%. So race-wise, predominantly in our sample, we had Black and African American participants and white participants. So we were pretty good on diversity. And then for our primary analysis, just to point out on the y-axis, these are our number of healthy foods in the household on average. And then on the x-axis, we have our 2 time points, April and July 2020. The red line is representing food secure households, and the green line is representing food insecure households. We did not have any significant main effect differences in the presence of healthy foods between the 2 time points between April and July 2020. However, we did have a significant time by food insecurity interaction, such that we had a significant decrease in the number of healthy foods in the household and food insecure households from April 2020 to July 2020 in comparison to food secure households. So we can see that here on this graph. Overall, our findings indicate a significant decrease in healthy foods in food insecure households when they're compared to food secure households. That's alarming. Food insecurity is increasing across our nation through the pandemic, and the pandemic is disproportionately impacting low-income families, unfortunately. So as we continue to collect data and continue to run these analyses and see what's happening, we're hoping that our results can be informative regarding different policy measures to help ease the economic burden of the COVID-19 pandemic, and hopefully easing the economic burden will help give more room for families to purchase healthy food items in their home, no matter what their financial state may be. So, and also just to thank you, Dr. Armstrong's my primary advisor, and our postdoc, Sarah Burkhart, have been so gracious in letting me learn along them in this study, and they've been so patient. And the ACLI group has been really supportive in giving feedback. And then just everyone here for giving me the opportunity to present today and submitting a poster before. This has been really wonderful and a great opportunity. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Hannah. That was great. I'm excited to introduce our next presenter. This would be Rubaiya Jesmin. Feel free to share your screen.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. So hi, I'm Rubaiya Jesmin. I'm a PhD candidate in Environmental Health Science Department. So today my presentation topic is mycotoxin mitigation in baby foods is key safety and nutrition. As a new mom, I'm always skeptical about the baby food. Food safety is one of the major in researches related to food toxicology. Mycotoxin contamination of baby food stuff is considered one of the most important chemical contaminants as it causes many chronic health risks. So now what is actually the mycotoxin? Mycotoxin are toxic secondary metabolites which is produced by different fungi species. These compounds pose a potential threat to human and animal health through the ingestion of infected food products. Aspergillus mold actually produce this kind of mycotoxin, and aflatoxin is one of the major mycotoxin which is produced by Aspergillus flavus, Aspergillus parasiticus, and other Aspergillus species. And these aflatoxin found in corn, wheat, barley, peanut, and other legumes as well, and it is liver carcinogen. There is so many aflatoxin. There are about 20 known aflatoxin, and the major one are aflatoxin B1, B2, G1, and G2. And the other like M1, M2 are the derivative of these 4 aflatoxin. So what is aflatoxin M1? Aflatoxin M1 is a metabolic product of aflatoxin B1. After an animal has fed on food that contains aflatoxin B1, its liver enzyme will metabolize aflatoxin B1 to aflatoxin M1, and then it excrete them in the urine and milk. So a mini survey of 17 different food produced by different Indian manufacturers was conducted for the presence of aflatoxin B1, B2, G1 and G2, aflatoxin M1, and deoxyribonucleic. So our lab published a paper, you can see in the screen, where we have shown that foods that we provide to children, almost all the foods have aflatoxin M1, which is a derivative of aflatoxin B1. I already said that, and it is also carcinogenic. In the United States, at least 1 or more mycotoxins were found in infants and toddlers' food. And we found some major mycotoxin in baby food stuff. Among them, aflatoxin and deoxyribonucleic are the main mycotoxins. So the effect of aflatoxin is very bad for the infant and other human being. That aflatoxin M1, which we found in infant formula milk, that actually caused the stunted growth, and it also caused liver cancer. It decreased the immunity system and it reduced the reproductive function as well. And that deoxyribonucleic is also very harmful. It causes inflammation, gastrointestinal atrophy, and also dysregulation of immune function. So these 2 aflatoxin and deoxyribonucleic all have very bad impact on infant health, and as well as it is very bad impact on human and animal. So we use 17 food sample for our study, and including these, we have infant food like cereals, cornflakes, Cerelac, milk powder, etc. And we also use nutritional drink and breakfast food. And the primary ingredient among the food samples are sugar, corn, milk, rice flour, etc., where we already found aflatoxin. And I already said that the corn and other grain food, peanut, oil seed, those are actually affected by Aspergillus flavus, and that Aspergillus flavus produce aflatoxin in this kind of food stuff. And those are the primary ingredient of that formula milk or that infant food or baby food stuff. So the methodology which we use here, we use 17 gram of we use 17 gram of each sample, and we extracted that aflatoxin by using chloroform or methanol extraction method. Then we use that ELISA kit for our quantifying the aflatoxin. So from the result, you can see that in infant food and snacks and other food ingredient, from all of them, we found almost 100% of aflatoxin, and that deoxylevanolol, we also found it at least 51.7%. That aflatoxin M1 and DON level is analyzed sample of baby foods available in Kolkata, India, and those food is for applicable for 0 to 2 years. So this is the research summary of my data. So where we use different kind of infant food, snacks, products, nutritional drink, and breakfast food. So that Indian, from the data, we can say that 100% contamination of food sample by aflatoxin M1, 100% contamination of food sample occurred by aflatoxin M1. And you can also see that 51.7% contamination of food sample occur by deoxylevanolol, and aflatoxin M1 present in a non-milk sample. We found that deoxylevanolol present in milk-based sample. And from these data, we can conclude that Indian infants and toddlers are at risk of simultaneous exposure to higher than recommended levels of aflatoxin M1 and also deoxylevanolol. So from our findings, we also want to do some further study. Like we want to track the sources of mycotoxin contamination along the food chain in our future study. And we also want to mitigate the aflatoxin contamination by using our novel bacteria, Rubaiya Jesmin. So those are the references which we use here. And thank you all.
Thank you so much. That was great. Excellent. Well, our next presenter is on the road traveling right now, but she was able to pre-record her presentation. So Andrea Brown's presentation, we're going to set that up for you so that you can watch it. Thanks, Emma.
Hello, my name is Danielle Brown, and I'm a third-year PhD epidemiology student. And for my research, I looked at the association between mental health, particularly risk for depression or depression symptoms, among food insecure adolescents and young adults with diabetes. And so just some brief background. Depression is understudied among people in diabetes in general, particularly among youth and young adults with diabetes. However, the Search for Diabetes in Youth study, they have a cohort of youth and young adults who have type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And their previous research have found that depression has been connected to a decreased glycemic control among youth and young adults with type 1 or type 2 diabetes. And also that youth with type 2 diabetes have a higher risk for depression when compared to youth with type 1 diabetes. And so risk for depression or depression symptoms, increased depression symptoms is a concern among youth and young adults who have type 1 or type 2 diabetes. In general, the exposure of interest here is household food security status. And here we define those who are household food insecure as those who have who have limited or uncertain access to food, and it's a household level variable. And those who are household food secure are considered when all members of a household have access to food to maintain a healthy lifestyle. And so previous research has found that being household food insecure is associated with increased risk of depression among non-diabetic youth and young adults. But the association between household food security status and depression symptoms among youth and young adults with diabetes is understudied. And so for my particular research, I looked at how the association between household food security status and depression symptoms, looked at this association among youth and young adults with type 1 or type 2 diabetes. In particular, I used the most recent search for diabetes in youth cohort, which is their phase 4 cycle. And this data was collected from 2015 to 2019. I had 3 different models. And for my models, youth are considered those aged 10 to 17, and young adults are considered age 18 to 35. But in one of my models, I had 330, it included 35 youth with type 1 diabetes. And I had a second model, which included 731 young adults with type 1 diabetes. And then I had, my last model included 272 young adults with type 2 diabetes. And so in total, the sample was 1338. And here, household food security status was classified as a binary model, where we compared those who were household food secure to those who were household food insecure. And this was measured using the standard USDA assessment for food security. It's the household food insecurity module. And depression symptoms were measured using the CSD scale, and there was a range of 0 to 60. And the higher your score, the higher your measure of depression symptoms or risk for depression. In particular, those with the score of 24 or higher were considered to be at risk for depression. But here in our models, we kept this measure as a continuous outcome. And so the higher your score, the higher your risk for depression. And we use linear regression models, and our adjusted models were adjusted for age, sex, race, site clinic, and diabetes duration. And so this slide here is just showing the demographics for our sample, and it's stratified by food security status. And here we see that there were no significant differences in food security status across age and for diabetes duration. However, there were significant differences in food security status for sex, where female were more likely to be food insecure. For diabetes type, those with type 2 diabetes were more likely to be food insecure. And across race, those who were, non-Hispanic whites were least likely to be food insecure. And there was significant difference for the mean depression score, where those who were food insecure had a mean depression score of 15.4, and those who were food secure had a mean depression score of 9.5. So our results found that among young adults with type 1 diabetes, those that were when comparing to those who were food secure, those who were food insecure had a 7.4 higher score for risk of depression, again, among young adults with type 1 diabetes. For young adults with type 2 diabetes, those that were food insecure had a 4.8 higher score for risk of depression when compared to those who were food secure. And among youth with type 1 diabetes, again, those were aged 10 to 17, those who were food insecure had a 3.2 higher score for risk of depression when compared to those who were food insecure. And these were all significantly different. And so in conclusion, the results indicate that living in a food insecure household is associated with increased depression symptoms and risk for depression among youth and young adults with type 1 or type 2 diabetes. And that in general, that there should be greater consideration of mental health when addressing household food insecurity among youth and young adults with diabetes. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, great. If any of you have questions for Andrea, since she's not able to be with us today, feel free to email them to me, Kelly Du Bois, or to Emma Kenny, and we can get those questions to her and put you in contact. So last but not least, we get to hear from Katherine Devivo.
Okay, so my name is Katherine Devivo. I am a first-year doctoral student in the exercise science department. So first, I just want to thank the funders and my team for this study, who you can see on the screen. We did this project over the summer, so I will be talking about eating behaviors and grocery shopping experiences during the COVID-19 pandemic among adults who were in a weight loss program. So we're all very familiar with the COVID-19 pandemic. I won't go too in depth here, but some recommendations from the CDC came out once the pandemic was classified a pandemic in March, early March. So social distancing, staying 6 feet away, large gatherings were not taking place, schools and universities went to e-learning, and there was the shelter in place and stay at home orders. We did, some preliminary reports showed that because of the pandemic, we were seeing elevated stress and anxiety levels early on. And we know that elevated stress and anxiety can hinder weight control efforts. Thinking about dietary behavior specifically can be increased caloric intake, increased snacking, or consuming high fat and high sugar foods. This is problematic because over 70% of our population is overweight, with nearly 40% considered to have obesity. So we were curious, thinking about this situation, we're seeing increases in stress. We know that that can lead to these behaviors. We were really curious what individuals' behaviors looked like. We didn't know. So we wanted to take the opportunity to talk to people about their experience and learn how the pandemic influenced them. Considering this was a global pandemic where the whole world essentially shut down, it was a really unique and timely opportunity to do these interviews and to talk to individuals. So the purpose of my study is to explore and describe how the COVID-19 pandemic influenced dietary behaviors among adults who were enrolled in an internet-based weight loss program. These adults were in a program out of the New England states, so they were located in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Just for context, those states went into the stay-at-home orders on the 24th and 28th of March, respectively. We completed semi-structured interviews over the phone with these individuals, and the interviews took place from the 1st to the 22nd of June. So the interviews explored the influence of the pandemic on dietary behaviors, and then we used constant comparative analysis to identify themes, which I will talk about. So our population there was 30 individuals. They were primarily female and white. The average age was 55, and they had an average BMI of 31.1. These are the themes that we found, but I will talk a little more in depth about each of them. So for dietary themes, we saw change in eating out frequency or modality. With the stay-at-home orders, at first with the pandemic, eating in a restaurant, dining in, was not an option. And additionally, individuals were encouraged to stay at home as much as possible. So our participants reported, like you'll see in that bottom quote, that individual says they would get pizza or get something like that at least once a week. And since the pandemic started, they hadn't done that at all. So the behavior of going to restaurants or getting food to go really was changed due to the pandemic, and changed over the course of the pandemic. We also saw changes in alcohol consumption. We saw that in both directions, some reporting they were drinking more, others reporting they were drinking less. And then the intensity of that change also varied. For some, it was a slight change, and others, they noticed a big change personally. We also saw individuals cooking more, which would make sense considering that first bullet. If you're used to going out to eat often and you're not doing that now, you'll be making more of your meals in the home. We found some shopping themes, which interestingly, we did not anticipate or ask about directly. This came just when we were asking about their dietary behaviors. Some issues or changes in their shopping routine came up. So the first was change in shopping frequency. Like this quote is explaining, the individual used to go to the grocery store weekly. To limit the exposure and the amount of times they had to leave, they were going every other week, which then changed to them stocking up, buying a lot more items at that visit. They mentioned the fresh fruits they would get would last for the first week, and the second week, it wasn't as fresh, or the food looked different. So we saw that a lot, that individuals were going to stores at a different frequency, or they were visiting different stores because maybe they couldn't find items, which leads to the next theme, which was inability or change in ability to find certain foods. At the beginning of the pandemic, so March and April, there was more reported of not being able to find items. And then as it progressed, individuals said that got better, but some weeks there were some items they couldn't find, and they just saw some fluctuations with what was available at what store. So some barriers to healthy eating that we saw: snacking or ease of access to food. This makes sense, and we saw this a lot. Individuals talk about being at home working, where they're sitting, they can see their refrigerator or cabinets, they're in the kitchen. So the proximity of being in the kitchen, being able to access that snack food whenever they want, was really an issue. And we also had individuals mention that they were buying up a lot more or stocking up on snack food, which leads to the next barrier: eating as a coping mechanism. This quote's great. This individual is saying, poor me, poor us, the ice cream shops are open and we all deserve to split a sundae, we deserve the cookies. It's the poor me mentality. And we saw this a lot, that individuals said with this global pandemic happening, something they can't control, something that's causing stress or anxiety, they would resort to food to cope with that. They would reward themselves with a junk food or with a baked good. We also saw individuals talk about comfort food. So they would cook meals that they maybe wouldn't normally cook, but they felt that they deserved that, and they used food to cope with the pandemic. The last barrier is the lack of routine or planning. This really makes sense. Like I touched on earlier, these individuals that were used to going to work or maybe had extracurricular activities and routines, that was all uprooted and they're at home now. And so like this quote is saying, before the individual knew what her breakfast was, what their lunch was, and now they don't have to plan ahead. They don't have to do the meal prep, or they don't have portion sizes like they did maybe when they were at the office. So that became an issue, not having the structure or that routine. We did see some common facilitators to healthy eating. So again, these individuals were previously or just finishing up a weight loss program. So they had a lot of these techniques that they knew, and most of the people reported negative impacts to their dietary behaviors. However, there were a few individuals, specific examples, if they had a busy work schedule, busy extracurriculars, maybe children that they were running around, taking to events. Maybe prior to the pandemic, they were getting fast food a lot in between, or different situations where they noticed with the pandemic, they're at home, they don't have everything going on, they were able to cook more meals or such like that. So in the individuals who reported some positive changes or what helped them to continue to eat healthy, these were what we found: controlling the calories, so maybe portion sizes, having a regular routine or schedule, and then monitoring what they eat. So in conclusion, the pandemic has absolutely influenced adults' eating and grocery shopping behaviors. We saw these barriers that I discussed. Considering as the COVID-19 pandemic continues, it's still going on, it's important to address these barriers, understanding that individuals are facing these. So how can we inform public health recommendations to be prepared for that and address those? So considering snack or ease of access to food, promoting healthy snack options. If they're in the home and they have access to that fridge or that cabinet, having healthy alternatives for them, thinking about the routine and planning, and maybe taking into consideration the barriers or challenges that individual faced when they were grocery shopping, and having backups if they can't find something that they're used to or that they need, having healthy backups, being prepared for that so they're not unsure what to do. And then considering the coping mechanism, and this relates to really any stressful situation, not only the pandemic, but promoting and encouraging healthy stress management so that individuals are not turning to food and stress eating and using that as their coping mechanism. So my email is on this slide if there's any additional thoughts or questions that we don't get to in the Q&A now, but so feel free just to shoot me an email if you want to talk any more about my research. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katherine. Well, it's pretty obvious to me why you four earned the highest scores and were the winners of our poster presentations. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. So we're going to move forward towards our question and answer session. We have a couple of minutes. Feel free to write your question in the chat box or just mention that you have a question. And given that there's a relatively small handful of us, I think it would be okay if you just unmute yourself and alert us that you have a question to ask as well. I noticed that we have one question already in our group chat, so we'll address that one first. This one is to Rubaiya, and Shiva asks, he has a couple questions. From where did you obtain those foods? Maybe directly from the stores, or were they foods that were bought and stored in the home for a longer time? And also, how are you planning to disseminate your results to the storekeepers and local government in the study area? Rubaiya?
Thank you for this nice question. So we obtain this food stuff from India, and we collected 17 samples from 15 different companies, and those include infant foods, toddlers foods, and other snacks items. So some collaborator actually bought this food from Indian stores, and they send us to send it to the university in our lab through the and then the second question is, yeah, so actually we got these kind of food sample from India. So when we and those have the expired date, still we got the aflatoxin in those kind of sample. So our future plan to disseminate the result to the storekeeper, we informed our result to those companies, and but then nothing actually happened. So we'll still study about those kind of thing, and let's see what will happen in future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Hey, Kelly, this is Susan Steck. Can I ask a question to Hannah Parker?
Absolutely, thanks, Susan.
Those were all really great presentations. Thanks, guys. I think this is the right one. So you guys noticed a change in healthy food was there any difference in unhealthy food amount between insecure and secure households?
Dr. Stack, how are you?
Good.
Thank you for your question. That is a great question. We started to analyze all of that, but we're currently analyzing all of our data, so it's ongoing. So I don't know if we've zoned in on unhealthy foods yet. We were trying to focus on healthy foods just at the beginning to see if there was any difference in that. But that's definitely a great question. I'll talk to Sarah and Dr. Armstrong if we've started any type of analysis for that. And if not, maybe we can run something and I can follow up with you. But that's a wonderful question. It'd be good to compare both of them.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other? I do have a question for Katherine. I wanted to ask, and I may have missed this, you may have mentioned, but how did you recruit your participants? And then also, what was it like doing all of your interviews over the phone? Did you feel that that was a bigger challenge than meeting in person?
Yeah, so our individuals were, as I mentioned, in a weight loss program prior, but I didn't give detail. That's something that we are involved on. And so we have been working with that group there. And so that's why we recruited that sample. We knew we would have individuals who fit a higher BMI, were involved in a weight loss program, and that's what we were interested in looking at. So that's how we had them. Recruitment was super easy. We put out one email and we had lots of responses. So individuals were eager to talk. I think with the stay-at-home orders, not socializing a lot, they were really eager to. That was my first experience doing qualitative research and interviewing individuals. So I don't necessarily have something to compare to with in-person interviews. However, I did not find it difficult. All of our interviews went close to or longer than an hour. A lot of people were very willing to talk, give a lot of information, share about their experiences. So it wasn't difficult to interview or to get a lot of information.
That's great, thank you. We have 1 or 2 minutes for one more question. Any others? All right, well, if you have a question, go ahead and throw it in the chat and we can address it as we go. I think next, our Student Nutrition Group President, Marilyn Wind, has an activity for us. So we'll turn it over to Marilyn.
Sorry about that. I tried to open Kahoot and it started to play like some spooky music and I didn't want to start playing it to everyone. Hi everyone, my name is Marilyn Wendy. I'm a PhD student in, oh, can you hear me? Okay. I'm a PhD student in health promotion, education, and behavior, and the president of the Student Nutrition Group. We thought it would be fun to end these presentations with a little trivia session. I recently discovered Kahoot, and a couple other members of our group also discovered it. So it's kind of a fun way to play trivia and with like music and stuff. So I'm going to share my screen. That's okay. Okay. So you'll just go to the website and enter this pin. There we go. Your name should show up once you've added yourself. give it one more minute for everyone to register. Alrighty, I'm gonna start it. I think you can join after it starts too, so if anybody is still working on logging it in. Okay. This one relates to Rubaiya Jesmin study. Which mycotoxins are common in baby foods? This one's tough.
Thank you. Actually, baby food stuff. So I have to answer this question, or?
Oh no, right answers are
Okay.
You don't have to be on the spot. Yes, it was all of the above though.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have any comments for Rubaiya, that one was tough. What did everyone guess?
Yeah, it's actually all of them. Aflatoxin, deoxyribonucleic orchotoxin, all are common in baby food stuff.
Yep. That one's a tough one. Okay, so first place on that one was Chantal, followed by KD. Okay. Hannah Parker's food insecure households report decreased access to healthy foods in the home during the COVID pandemic. Research uses which type of analysis? This will jog your memories. Nice. Wow. I thought that was going to trick everybody up. Really good. Yeah, it also it rates you on how fast you click the button too, so that kind of improves your score. Chantel's still in the lead, followed by KD and Hannah. Okay. In the eating behaviors and grocery shopping experiences during COVID-19 study by Katherine, which of the following was not a barrier to healthy eating? Nice. We got that one right too. It's lack of self-monitoring. Okay. Nice. Hannah's on a streak, but Chantal's still in the lead, followed by KD. Okay. The next question is about Rubaiya's study again. Mycotoxin contamination has negative impacts on the the economy and health is the right answer. I'm glad nobody answered the weather, because there's no way it can impact the weather, I don't think. Although I don't know that much about mycotoxins. Okay, next question. Okay, here's the leaderboard. Hannah's on a streak, Chantal's still in the lead. Emma and Christine Blake are making their way up the list. Okay, Hannah Parker's food insecure households during COVID-19 study looks at parents of Elementary age children, yes. Not athletes or infants or first generation immigrants. Yep, Chantel's still in the lead. KD and Hannah following. Okay, in Rubaiya's study, how is aflatoxin M1 measured in baby foods? Is it with ELISA, chloroform, methanol extraction method, both, or neither? It was the enzyme-linked immunoassay. I'm really probably messing up all these words too, Rubaiya, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was kind of split. A lot of people thought it was both. Ooh, KD's in the lead now. Is that Katherine Devivo? Yeah, nice. Okay.
Katherine, your initials are my initials, so I'm living vicariously through you.
And the eating behaviors and grocery shopping during COVID study by Katherine, which is true about the sample population. Yep, they reside in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Okay. KD's still in the lead. On fire, apparently, according to Kahoot. Okay, in the eating behaviors and grocery shopping experiences during COVID study by Katherine, which dietary behavior facilitator was highlighted in the findings? Grapefruit looks really yummy. Yep, it was all of the above. Calorie control, regular routine and scheduling, and self-monitoring. Okay, last question. Ooh, Emma's making her way up to third place, leading KD and Chantel. True or false? The student nutrition group is hosting a food drive for Harvest Hope this November. Is it true or is it false? Oh my gosh, everybody got it right. That's awesome. Okay, so the podium, third place is Emma. I love this part. Next, Chantel. And Katherine Devivo won. It was Katherine, not Kelly, right? Nice. Awesome.
A little bit of an advantage, but I'll give it to her.
Yep. So, yeah, so our student nutrition group will be hosting a food drive throughout the month of November. I slipped that in there to give it a little FaceTime here. So we'll send out an email to everyone on how you can donate or get involved. I'll also drop just a little Google Forms link in here if anybody wants to help volunteer, just donate items, just put your name on there. As many people know, 1 in 6 South Carolinians struggle with food insecurity and hunger, and this year will be harder for most, so we really want to do our best to collect items for Harvest Hope. They do a great job of distributing food throughout the state, so we're collecting all non-perishable items, canned goods like fruit, vegetable, beans. So we'd love it if you could donate or get involved. And thank you to all the presenters. Those were awesome poster presentations. I feel like I learned so much, and I love how they really focused on the COVID pandemic, and Rubaiya's presentation on the infant foods is really interesting to me too. Yeah, so thank you for attending today. And I guess this is the end of the Nutrition Consortium Symposium. So does anybody have any last words about that? Just to follow up with everybody. Nice.
We've had a great symposium, multiple sessions, so thank you to everyone who has attended and participated. It's been really great.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
All right. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.